6 p.m. here in Cairo. Welcome to Channel 2's news updates, and here are the look at the main headlines. President Sisi arrives in Russia to co-chair the first Africa-Russia summit with Putin. Egypt welcomes UK decision to lift flight ban to Sharm el-Sheikh. And Putin and Erdogan starts talks on Syria in Russia. Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi arrived on Tuesday to the Russian city of Sochi, where he co-chairs the first Africa-Russia summit with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The president started his activities in Sochi with meeting with the chairman of the Russian gas company, which is specialized in vehicles and means of transportation industry. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that an Egyptian-Russian summit between President el-Sisi and President Putin is to be held during the visit. The talks will cover on means of boosting bilateral ties in various fields within the framework of a comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation, as well as agreements and keenness of continuing the intensified deliberations over issues of mutual concern. Also, during the visit, el-Sisi is to hold a number of meetings with African leaders who are taking part in the summit, besides his participation in the African-Russian Economic Forum. The forum is also to focus on a number of axes over developing trade cooperation and on the economic ties between both Russia and the African states. African leaders and business society figures, as well as investors, are also taking part in this forum. Radi did say that the African-Russian summit is the first of its kind. It will include 2 sessions and will also conclude with a final communique.
القاهرة وموسكو شراكة استراتيجية، علاقات سياسية واقتصادية ودبلوماسية انطلقت قبل 76 عاماً، توطدت خلالها روابط متميزة في مختلف الأصعدة على مدار تلك العقود. شهدت السنوات الأخيرة تعاوناً وتطوراً نوعياً في العلاقات المصرية الروسية في جميع المجالات، أبرزها في مجال الطاقة، متمثلاً في محطة الضبعة النووية، ثاني أكبر مشروع للطاقة في تاريخ مصر، بقدرة إنتاجية تبلغ 4800 ميجاوات، بتكلفة تتجاوز 21.3 مليار دولار. كذلك التعاون المصري الروسي في إنشاء المنطقة الصناعية الروسية شرق بورسعيد، والتي تعد من أكبر المشروعات القومية في مصر، باستثمارات تقدر ب 6.9 مليار دولار، وعلى مساحة تبلغ 5.25 كيلومترا. في مجال النقل والمواصلات تم توقيع عقود توريد 1300 عربة سكك حديد جديدة بتكلفة تناهز 22 مليار دولار، لتكون الأضخم في تاريخ السكك الحديدية المصرية. كما شهدت السنوات الأخيرة زيادة مضطردة في نسبة حجم التبادل التجاري بين البلدين، كذلك زيادة في نسبة الصادرات المصرية إلى روسيا، ووصل عدد الشركات الروسية التي تستثمر في مصر إلى 472 شركة حتى عام 2018. العلاقات المصرية الروسية لتحقيق المصالح المشتركة.
The Ministry of Civil Aviation welcomed today the British government's decision to resume its flight to the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, saying that such decision reflects the strong ties between Egypt and the United Kingdom. Britain said today it was ending a nearly 4-year suspension of flights to Sharm el-Sheikh. The British Minister for the Middle East and North Africa, Andrew Morrison, said that he is pleased that the UK can announce the lifting of the current restrictions. Meanwhile, the British ambassador to Egypt, Geoffrey Adams, said in a statement that the announcement follows UK's aviation security experts' close cooperation with their Egyptian counterpart. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli today held a meeting with the Minister of Tourism Rania Al-Mashat in order to discuss the preparations for launching the official website for the Umrah Lesser pilgrimage trips. The minister did say that Egypt's tourist companies began documenting contacts with Saudi agencies through the electronic portal in accordance with the Saudi system. After the completion of training programs on this new system for tourist companies tomorrow, training for airliners will begin on Sunday. The minister also said November 20th is a proposed date for the critical launch of the portal. In other news also related to the Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, who held a separate meeting with the Minister of Agriculture, Izzeddin Abu State, and he had stressed a plan that is needed to develop Egypt's agricultural quarantine measures as a part of state efforts to enhance the national agricultural exports. The Prime Minister said such upgrade will also cope with the demand from the importing countries to help improve the quality of exports, protect national agricultural wealth, and also help maintain Egypt's competitive edge in the agricultural trade. In other news, the national security apparatus had arrested 22 inciters who have tried to use the incident of the attack of Mahmoud al-Banna in Al-Munafiyah Governorate to instigate the citizens and turn the public opinion against the state through publishing lies and rumors. The operation came after security forces monitored attempts by the Brotherhood terrorist group and a number of inciters to use the incident. Handouts and weapons were seized with the inciters, who were to be used to instigate violence, create chaos, and disrupt the flow of traffic near the court where the trial of the attacker was held in Shibin El Qom. Legal procedures were also launched and the State Supreme Prosecution started the investigations. On to other news, the National Libyan Army did say that it had launched an airstrikes on the international Maytega airport, which is in the central of Tripoli and which is controlled by the forces loyal to the UN and recognized by the government of the National Accord. An army statement said that the raids targeted weapons depots and missiles prepared for use by the Turkish drones, which are used by militant groups. The statement added that the Libyan intelligence agencies located the depots inside the military part of the airport, stressing that the raid left no damage in civilian facilities or even in the buildings. Also, Russian President Vladimir Putin held talks today with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and that has been Turkish leaders threatening to restart Ankara's military offensive against the Kurdish forces in Syria. The two leaders met in southern Russia with just hours to go before a deadline for the withdrawal of the Kurdish fighters from parts of Syria under a US brokered deal. Putin, who has emerged as the key power broker in Syria, said he hoped to find a way to deal with the very severe situation in the country's north. On to Syria, where Syrian President Bashar al-Assad had said that the defeating terrorists in Idlib is the key to ending Syria's 8-year-long civil war. This came during his first visit to the embattled northwestern region since 2011. He also added that the Battle of Idlib is the basis for resolving chaos and terrorism in all other areas of Syria. His comments came as Syrian troops continue to deploy in parts of the north where they are supporting the Kurdish forces to contain a Turkish invasion. He said his troops have completed preparations for an offensive in Idlib and are now ready to receive and execute the order at the right time. A government committee that is tasked with investigating incidents of violence in Iraq has found a total of 157 people, mostly civilians, were killed because Iraqi security forces used excessive force and live fire to quell a wave of anti-government protests. A report said that the committee found evidence of sniper fire targeting protesters from a stop of a building in central Baghdad. It blamed senior security officials for losing command and control over the forces and recommended that Baghdad operations commanders and other senior officials be sacked. Lebanese security forces are trying to persuade protesters to reopen the roads across Lebanon through a peaceful means, but will not use any force if they refuse, as the country remained paralyzed by anti-government demonstrations. Aiming to diffuse anger at the political elite and dire economic conditions, the government led by Prime Minister Saad Hariri announced a set of measures earlier, including long-delayed reforms he said aimed to fight corruption and waste. On to Britain, where British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had said on Tuesday that he would end an attempt to win the parliamentary approval for his Brexit legislator and instead press for an election if lawmakers did reject his timetable. The MPs will be voting later today on whether they support a new divorce deal struck with the European Union last week ahead of Britain's October 31st scheduled departure from the bloc. Here's the story.
Is contained in the revised political declaration.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson faces two pivotal votes in Parliament today that will decide whether he can deliver on his promise to lead the United Kingdom out of the European Union in 9 days' time. As the clock ticks down to the latest October 31st deadline for Britain's departure, Brexit is hanging in the balance as a divided Parliament debates when, how and even whether it should happen. After he was forced by opponents into asking the EU for a delay that he'd vowed he would never seek, Johnson is battling to ram legislation through the House of Commons that will enact his last-minute Brexit deal. In yet another day of high drama, lawmakers vote today on the 115-page withdrawal agreement bill and then vote on the government's extremely tight timetable for approving the legislation. Defeat in either vote would scupper Johnson's plans to leave the EU with or without a divorce deal on October the 31st. He would have to decide whether to abide by a law that demands he accept any Brexit delay offered by the EU or somehow leave without a deal. Victory, an imperfect indicator of support for Johnson's deal, would give opponents in Parliament another chance to ambush the government with amendments that could wreck Johnson's plans by demanding a much closer post-Brexit relationship with the European Union.
And back home, the sun today morning penetrated the great temple of Abu Simbel in southern Aswan to light the face of the statue of Ramses II for 20 minutes. The phenomena occurs twice a year, on the 22nd of February and on the 22nd of October. The phenomena began at 5:49 a.m. local time and lasted until 6:09 a.m. The sun penetrated the giant temple of Abu Simbel and its rays entered to reach the entire temple 60 meters deep inside the monument. Moving on to the business news, and we start with Egypt's stock market, and the bourse's indices were also mixed today's trading sessions, affected by the purchase operations by local and Arab investors versus the selling operations by the foreign investors, in addition to the local and Arab institutions. Benchmark index EGX30 added 0.3% to close at 14,218 points. EGX30 capped closed up 0.1%. In the meantime, the medium-capped index EGX70 and the broader index EGX100 dropped 0.1% each. Internationally, Europe's main stock markets also mainly fell today ahead of the parliamentary vote by the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement bill. The investors kept an eye on Asia, though, which rose on growing hope that China and the US could sign a partial trade deal next month. London's benchmark FTSE 100 index of major firms shed 0.2%, while the pound remained under pressure. In the Eurozone, the Paris CAC 40 also lost 0.2%, while Frankfurt DAX 30 was flat. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin here on Channel 2. Thank you very much for watching.